So this is Tottenham Court Road, and it's lunchtime, and it's very, very busy with people from offices and students and stuff all coming out for their lunch, because no one brings in their own sandwiches anymore. Everybody goes out to lunch and they go and get it from shops and stuff like that. I don't know, people just can't be bothered to make sandwiches. Don't understand it. Anyway, down there, that's Goodge Street. If you just make out, I'll just close in on that Tesco there. So that's Goodge Street. And that Tesco, I can tell you, was originally, up until about 1966, was something called Victor Value, which was a big supermarket chain, and Tesco's bought them out. And then next door, which is now can never pronounce it properly, so it's Chipotle whether you like it or not, that and the base bit used to be a golden egg restaurant back in the late 60s and possibly early 70s. I only know that because I saw it in a piece of footage online. It was shots. So yeah, purpose of this video really, I don't know, it was just something to do at lunchtime, I was a bit bored, and why not really? Particularly just noticing things that have changed in terms of when I can recall it. This big building here, which is now a Monopoly games place, that was originally, I remember what it was until it closed, was Paper Chase, which was the big stationery, giftware, wrapping, all that sort of thing store. But before that, I remember that being Wiggins Paper Point, it's specialist. That's when I used to do graphic design when I was a student, and that's going back to the late 80s. So that's how far back that is. But you used to be able to buy like paper for graphics. Wiggins Teep was a big paper manufacturer. But all along here, all these big buildings along Tottenham Court Road, used to be lots of department stores, and right down the far end was Maples, which was a big department store for furniture. But Tottenham Court Road was always known for two things: one, furniture and furnishings, but also hi-fi shops back in the 70s and 80s and early 90s. But that's all pretty much gone. We've got these three survivors on the other side of the road, which are computer shops, but I mean, don't quite know, they're not going to hang out for too much longer, I would have thought. And then next to that is the Rising Sun pub. Now that's particularly interesting in terms of its architecture. Bit of dead time here. Very ornate, very Victorian Gothic, and periodically they clean it up a bit. They've got weeds growing on the top of it. It's fascinating fixtures on there. And in fact, if you're thinking, oh yes, the Rising Sun, the House of the Rising Sun, the Animals song, well, there is a picture somewhere online that shows you the Animals, the group, on the corner of the pub on Windmill Street, just leaning against the side of the pub. You can find that somewhere, I'm sure. Next to that big building, and I know that where Nat West is now used to be a Lasky's hi-fi shop. If you're wondering what all that noise is, it's one of those what are they called, taxi things that a bloke, you'll see what I mean when it goes through. Look, there you go, bang, absolute bloody nuisance. I've done a video about this building, which you can probably find if you're that interested, because it was a truck and lorry manufacturer, had it as showrooms, McCurds. So I'm now going down Store Street. Unless you actually sort of work in the vicinity, a lot of people walk straight past Store Street, but there's lots of interesting things down here, interesting shops. But here, a few years ago, they decided to pedestrianise it and turn it into parks as Alfred Place Gardens. So I don't know how it was before, because I didn't really know the area until I started working around here. The very far end is the Eisenhower Centre, which is a deep store for documents, but it was originally a deep level shelter in the Second World War. We have South Crescent on the other side. Someone tripping up there. This, when only probably about 5 or 6 years ago, used to be a co-op. How about that? And then I've done this before as well, this building here, which is the, what's it called? The building centre. It's a showcase for building and stuff. This used to be, back in the early 1900s, a Daimler car showroom. That's not Mercedes Daimler, it's the old British Daimler company. College Arms. This is quite clearly an Irish pub. And this rather interesting piece of little semi-brutalism stuck on the side of the building centre. Very of its age. And then all these shops along here. So this is what Store Street's known for particular, is this row of shops in which they're owned by the Grosvenor estate, I think it is. And one of the things that was stipulated was that they strictly stick to the signage, so it all looks very similar. Presumably they can only do it in black, and they can only use raised lettering and no colours to try and give it some sort of feeling of, I don't know, oldie worldy. Treadwell's bookshop. And this building here is the University of Law. An interesting piece of period architecture from the, what I would say, the mid to late 60s, probably mid 60s. But they're all shops of a type and restaurants of a type, with the odd exception of things like the printing centre, and you've got a bike shop. But to be honest with you, for most of them you need a bit of money. This here's a good one. This used to be the Ridgemont petrol station. So the bit that says petrol, that building there is relatively new, but the buildings which is the restaurant now, that was a petrol station. It's marked out by this rather charming piece of tile work. Let's see if I can get in closer, showing you how it would have been in ye olde days with an Aston Martin in purple, which I can't imagine would ever be the case. Really busy at lunchtime. Everybody pours out. I suppose it's because it's quite a reasonable weather, because it has been a bit strange of late. So we're at the end of May. And I might as well just take you down to Senate House. But I've done a video a bit about that before, not that long ago. We're now going on to Gower Street. Which is what I would say early Victorian Georgian. I must get my building types right. But it's a long street which is very much this style of housing all the way along, with a few exceptions. One being this building, which is the Institute of Tropical Diseases and Hygiene, something like that. Built in 1926, I think it is. Yeah, it is the, there we go, I got it all wrong. It's the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Portland Stone, everything sort of Portland Stone. Senate House, which is the University of London, which is the organisation that I work for, but not in this bit. Senate House, which was designed by Charles Howland, who did an awful lot of stuff for London Transport back in the 1920s through to the 40s and into the 50s. Well, maybe not into the 50s. I don't know what the heck's going on over here. great big container being lifted off a truck. I assume something to do with building work. So yes, that is the tower of Senate House, and most of that is the library. And they built this odd set of steps about, I suppose it must have been about 4 years ago. So people could sit up here at lunchtime, whenever, and they have a screen which you can watch. This was just a car park, this crazy painting. A lot of wind noise, I'm sorry about that. There's a nice little cut through here. This is all going to get tidied up soon. They're going to put in wildflowers and all that sort of malarkey. So that will be another small changes, I think is what they call it, just prettifying things up. This is just cutting you through to nowhere in particular. Well, it's around the back of Senate House. All these plane trees that go along Mallet Street, which is what the main street is here. Mallet Street has appeared in a lot of films because there are parts of it look like an American street. So yes, this is a bit this building work that's going on here, all these blue hoardings. But I'm doing a sort of reverse of a video that I did before, which started off down Gordon Street, and I approached Senate House from the other angle. So there you go, that's where I came in the last time. So really, that probably wraps it up actually. Nothing more remarkable to point out, but yeah. Lunchtime at the University of London. Oh, and they got the farmers market on. Well, they call it a farmers market, but I'm not really convinced. It's more of just a food market. I just had to pause things there whilst I walk past someone, because sometimes people don't like to be videoed, or at least that's what I tend to think. I tend to think about people's privacy slightly. So I'm just going to cut through here. The SOAS Library building by Dennis Lasden. Again, I did a bit of a thing on that on the previous video, but it's just from a different angle. This glass area was a later addition. It used to just be an open space. Now, one thing I didn't actually mention on the video I did before in this area was this piece of land that's directly in front of us. Now at the moment it's got block and mesh screening around it, and that's because recently, well, last year I suppose, there was a lot of problem that the university had with people encamping on the ground, protests to do with Gaza, and they just basically moved along. Every time they were moved on, they moved to somewhere else, and they eventually decided, oh right, we're just going to put block and mesh up everywhere, which not particularly attractive. But the Gaza protest guys are now near the church, Euston Church. But this area of land here that we're looking at, and so that until around about 1975-6, there used to be a church there, a Victorian church with a spire. I can't remember the name of it, I'm terribly sorry, but yeah, that was pulled down, I assume because they thought they were going to build on the land, and they didn't. But we do have this set of repeat of the other side of the road here, or the other side of the square, which is the Woburn Square. These Georgian townhouses. I could walk you through Woburn Square, I could do that. Not a lot to see though, really, Woburn Square. But it's just another London park. It's actually owned and maintained by the University of London. Ah, this is handy. So I was talking about the church. There we go. That is what the church looked like. So the row of houses that are still there, there's the church, and then that lot all came down for the Institute of Education building. That's a nice shot of Senate House. So the name of that church should be on here somewhere. But I can't see it. Anyway, that's what it looked like. Just another sort of Gothic-y Victorian church. So this is Woburn Square, which never seems to do too well with grass, mainly because of all these London plane trees, which tend to put everything in the shade in the summer. And we have a nice little hut at the end, and you can hear parrots squawking. Another opportunity to see my workplace, the Warburg Institute. There you go. And yeah, I think that pretty much sums it all up. So that was a bit of an odd one. I started off on Tottenham Court Road and ended up at Woburn Square. Thank you for watching.